Hey y'all, it's Kim. So, of course, y'all have heard of Russiagate, 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 and the Steele dossier, and somebody else call it the PP dossier. I'm just now looking into this, but I'm just like, what the hell? I heard somebody explain. I think it was Benny Johnson, and he said something about, I guess that Trump was going to hire hookers and have them pee on somebody. I was like, what? That's what they accused him of doing. And I was like, what the hell is that? But anyways, it's confidential, sensitive source, company intelligence report 2016, and then 08 or 080. It says U.S. presidential election, Republican candidate Donald Trump's activities in Russia and compromising relationship with the Kremlin. Summary: Russian regime has been cultivating, supporting, and assisting Trump for at least 5 years. AIM is endorsed by Putin, has been encouraged has been to encourage splits and division in Western alliance. So far, Trump has declined various sweetener real estate business deals offered him in Russia in order to further the Kremlin's cultivation of him. However, he and his inner circle have accepted a regular flow of intelligence from the Kremlin, including on his Democratic and other political rivals. Former top Russian intelligence officer claims FSB has compromised Trump through his activities in Moscow sufficiently to be able to blackmail him. According to several knowledgeable sources, his conduct in Moscow has included perverted sexual acts which have been arranged and monitored by the FSB, a dossier of compromising material on Hillary Clinton had been collated by the Russian intelligence services over many years and mainly comprises bugged conversations she had on various visits to Russia and intercepted phone calls rather than any embarrassing conduct. The dossier is controlled by Kremlin spokesperson Peskov directly on Putin's orders. However, it has not as yet been distributed abroad, including to Trump. Russian intentions for its deployment is still unclear. Now, I think Hillary Clinton actually paid for it. I think they found the FEC filings where they had to pay like a big fine for using campaign money to have this thing written up. But anyway, it says detail one, speaking to a trusted compatriot in June of 2016, sources A and B, a senior Russian foreign minister figure or ministry figure, and a foreign top level Russian intelligence officer still active inside the Kremlin, respectively. The Russian authorities have been cultivating and supporting U.S. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump for at least 5 years. Source B asserted that the Trump operation was both supported and directed by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Its aim was to sow discord by by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Its aim, sorry, was to sow discord. Let me see. This one, for whatever reason, this document, this page. Hold on. How did I get it to straighten out earlier? This might not be the right one. Ooh, I hate that. Hold on. Sorry, I have to get the other one because that page won't straighten. Okay, the Steele dossier. Okay, PDF. Because I have it messed up. Sorry, I screwed this up. I should have had the other one. This one. But I think I can actually get it open. And it does a little better. Let's see. The Moscow Project. Let's see if it'll open. Yeah, of course. Oh, the full documents of the American make up their mind. Let's see if I can get that one page straightened out. It's for page 2. Okay, this one I think is the one that might be okay. Come on. One of them I was able to get it fixed. So that's why I was like, oh, I hope it's this one. Okay. So pretty much its aim was to sow discord and disunity both within the U.S. itself, but more especially within the transatlantic alliance, which was viewed as inimical, 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 I don't know, to Russia's interest. Source C, a Russian or senior Russian financial officer or official, said the Trump operation should be seen in terms of Putin's desire to return to 19th century great power politics anchored upon countries' interests rather than the ideals based international order established after World War II. He had overheard Putin talking in this way to close associates on several occasions. In terms of specifics, Source A confided that the Kremlin had been feeding Trump and his team valuable intelligence on his opponents, including Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton for years, as see more below. This was confirmed by Source D, a close associate of Trump, who had organized and managed his recent trips to Moscow and who reported also in June 2016 that this Russian intelligence had been very helpful. The Kremlin's cultivation operation on Trump also had comprised offering, excuse me, had comprised offering him various lucrative real estate development business deals in Russia, especially in relation to the ongoing 2018 World Cup soccer tournament. However, so far, for reasons unknown, Trump had not taken up any of those because it's not true. Okay, however, there were other aspects to Trump's engagement with the Russian authorities, one which had borne fruit for them was to exploit Trump's personal obsessions and sexual perversions in order to obtain suitable compromise, like compromising material on him, according to Source D, where he had been present. Trump's perverted conduct in Moscow, including hiring the presidential suite of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, where he knew President and Mrs. Obama, whom he hated, had stayed on one of their official trips to Russia, and defiling the bed where they had slept by employing a number of prostitutes perform a golden showers urination show in front of him. The hotel was known to be under FSB control with microphones and concealed cameras in all the main rooms to record anything they wanted to. The Moscow Ritz-Carlton episode involving Trump reported above was confirmed by Source E, which is redacted, who said that he, and several of the staff were aware of it at the time and subsequently and he believed it had happened in 2013. Source E provided an introduction for a company ethnic Russian operative to Source F, a female staffer at the hotel when Trump had stayed there, who also confirmed the story. Speaking separately in June 2016, Source B, the former top level Russian intelligence officer, asserted that Trump's unorthodox behavior in Russia over the years had provided the authorities there with enough embarrassing material on the now Republican presidential candidate to be able to blackmail him if they so wished. Asked about the Kremlin's reported intelligence feed to Trump over recent years and rumors about a Russian dossier of compromise on Hillary Clinton being circulated, Source B confirmed the file's existence. He confided in a trusted compatriot that it had been collated by Department K of the FSB for many years, dating back to her husband Bill's presidency, and comprised mainly eavesdropped conversations of various sorts rather than details, evidence of unorthodox or embarrassing behavior. Some of the conversations were from bugged comments Clinton had made on her various trips to Russia and focused on things she had said, which contradicted her current position on various issues. Others were most probably from phone intercepts. Continuing on this theme, Source G, a senior Kremlin official, confided that the Clinton dossier was controlled exclusively by Chief Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, who was responsible for compiling, handling it on the explicit instructions of Putin himself. The dossier, however, has not had not as yet been made available abroad, including to Trump or his campaign team. At present, it was unclear what Putin's intentions were in this regard. Let's see here. So let me go back to the other one because this is harder to read this way. Let me go back because we're on page 4. Okay. So give it a second. Okay. So Company Intelligence Report 2016-086, and then Russia Cyber Crime, a synopsis of Russian state-sponsored and other cyber offensive criminal operations. Summary: Russia has extensive program of state-sponsored offensive cyber operations. External targets include foreign governments and big corporations, especially banks. FSB leads on cyber within Russian apparatus, limited success in attacking top foreign targets like G7 governments, security services, and IFIs, but much more on second tier ones through IT backdoors using corporate and other visitors to Russia. FSB often uses coercion and blackmail to recruit most capable cyber operatives in Russia into its state sponsored programs. Heavy use also both wittingly and unwittingly of CIS immigrants, whatever, working in Western corporations and ethnic Russians employed by neighboring governments, like, for example, Latvia. Example cited of successful Russian cyber operation targeting senior Western business visitor, provided backdoors into important Western institutions. Example given of U.S. citizen of Russian origin approached by FSB and offered incentive of investment in his business when visiting Moscow. Problems, however, for Russian authorities themselves encountering local hackers and cyber criminals operating outside state control. Central bank claims there were over 20 serious attacks on correspondent accounts held by CBR in 2015, comprising rubles, several billion in fraud. Some details given of leading non-state Russian cyber criminal groups. The details speaking in June 2016, a number of Russian figures with the detailed knowledge of national cybercrime, both state-sponsored and otherwise, outline the current situation in this area. A former senior intelligence officer divided Russian state-sponsored offensive cyber operations into 4 categories in order of priority: targeting foreign, especially Western governments, penetrating leading foreign business corporations, especially banks, domestic monitoring of the elite, and attacking political opponents both at home and abroad. The former intelligence officer reported that the Federal Security Service, or the FSB, was the lead organization within the Russian state apparatus of cyber operations. In terms of the success of Russian offensive cyber operations to date, a senior government figure reported that there had been only limited success in penetrating the first tier of foreign targets. These comprise Western, especially G7 and NATO governments, security and intelligence services, and central banks and the IFIs. To compensate for this shortfall, massive effort had been invested with much greater success in attacking the secondary targets, particularly Western private banks and the governments of smaller states allied to the West. Sheehy mentioned Latvia, In this regard, hundreds of agents, either consciously cooperating with the FSB or whose personal and professional IT systems had been unwittingly compromised, were recruited. Many were people who had ethnic and family ties to Russia and or had been incentivized financially to cooperate. Such people often would receive monetary inducements or contractual favors from the Russian state or its agents in return. This had created difficulties for parts of the Russian state apparatus in indulging them, e.g., the Central Bank of Russia, knowingly having to cover up for such agents' money laundering operations through the Russian financial system. In terms of the FSB's recruitment of capable cyber operatives to carry out its ideally deniable uh, offensive cyber operations, a Russian IT specialist with direct knowledge reported in June 2016 that this was often done using coercion and blackmail. In terms of foreign agents, the FSB was approaching U.S. citizens of Russian or Jewish origin on business trips to Russia. In one case, a U.S. citizen of Russian ethnicity had been visiting Moscow to attract investors. In his new information technology program, the FSB clearly knew this and had offered to provide seed capital to this person in return for them being able to access and modify his IP with the view to targeting priority foreign targets by planting a Trojan virus in the software. The U.S. visitor was told this was common practice. The FSB also had implied significant operational success as a result of installing cheap Russian IT games containing their own malware unwittingly by targets on their PCs and other platforms. In a more advanced and successful FSB operation, an IT operator inside a leading Russian SOE who previously have been employed on conventional defensive IT work there had been under an instruction for the last year to conduct an offensive cyber operation against a foreign director of the company. Although the latter was apparently an infrequent visitor to Russia, the FSB now successfully penetrated his personal IT and through this had managed to access various important institutions in the West through the back door. In terms of other technical IT platforms, an FSB cyber operative flagged up the Telegram enciphered commercial system as having been of a special concern and therefore heavily targeted by the FSB, not least because it was used frequently by Russian internal political activists and oppositionists. Her understanding was that the FSB now successfully cracked this communication software and therefore it was no longer secure to use. The senior Russian government figure cited above also reported that non-state sponsored cybercrime was becoming an increasing problem inside Russia for the government and authorities there. The Central Bank of Russia claimed that in 2015 alone, there have been more than 20 attempts at serious cyber embezzlement of money from corresponding accounts held there, comprising several billions in rubles. More generally, he understood there were circa 15 major organized crime groups in the country involved in cybercrime, all of which contained or continued to operate largely outside state and FSB control, and these included the so-called Ananuk, Booktrap, and Metal organizations. All right, I'm going to stop it here and then we'll probably record a little bit more of this one. But anyway, it's kind of weird. The golden showers. Anyway, talk to y'all later. Have a good one. Bye.